All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining for another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am pumped today to have Lori Joyce on the show to talk about her brand BetterWith. And Lori, thank you for coming on.
Thanks very much, Shane.
Thank
Promise this
you.
will be fun.
This will be a blast. I bet it will. Do you mind giving the listeners just a little background into you and what you're building?
Yeah, it's going to be a tease considering that I think most of your listeners are US based.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you won't
Well, actually,
be able
no,
to.
that's not true. I thought that until recently I started looking at the demographic, and actually we do have some people in Canada,
Oh, fantastic.
which I don't
So
really know where they came from, but I'm pumped to have them.
BetterWith is currently a West Coast Canadian brand. So I'm very strategically determined to get into the US market. So
Love it.
maybe we'll do podcast interview number 2 when that
Let's do it.
happens.
Yes.
So my ice cream is built on the core principles of clean label. You know, I wanted to produce an ice cream that was a reflection of my upbringing. So old world, indulgent, and ultimately ice cream like your grandmother used to make in your kitchen.
Yeah, got it. Do you why do you think, because when you wanted to come up with that, was there research that went into looking if other brands had done that, and if not, I'm assuming I know from my research that it really isn't. Why do you think some of the bigger ice cream brands have not tried to do that?
Well, it all started a few years ago when my 2 boys started eating solid foods. And as a mom, for the first time, I became very cognizant of what I was feeding them. Now, take it back to the 70s. My parents came here from Croatia and immediately brought the tradition of farming. And
Okay.
that was my upbringing. I'm that girl that didn't know what an aluminum can was until I moved out and went to university.
Oh, whoa. Wait, and why is that? I've never heard of that a saying before.
Because everything that I grew up eating was made from scratch.
Got it. Yeah, okay. Got it.
So
Everything came from the farm, or everything was, yeah.
everything was grown. We were self-sustaining, and everything was either, excuse the expression, killed that day or picked that day.
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up, with that influence. And it really is something that I didn't appreciate, honestly, until I became a mom. But once I became a mom, it really resonated with me. And I started reading ingredient labels. And I discovered for the first time that what I had been buying for my kids ultimately wasn't even classified as ice cream. It was frozen dessert.
Yeah.
And as a consumer, I was like, what the fuck is that?
Sure. Yeah. Right.
I just sorry for swearing, but that was my
No,
reaction
you're
in the
good.
aisle. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, what's frozen dessert, and why is this not ice cream? So I was already an
What is that?
entrepreneur.
Not to cut you off. I was reading that on your website. What is for people who don't know, how would you describe the difference between real ice cream and frozen dessert, or what they call ice cream in a lot of ways?
Well, it's a scientific definition. In order for it to be classified as ice cream, there needs to be at least 10% butterfat in the recipe.
Oh, okay. Got it. Didn't know that.
Either did I at the time. And I liked ice cream. You know, I also at the time owned my own bakery business. So because I was an entrepreneur, and immediately I just saw this as a unique opportunity. Haagen-Dazs, which we're all familiar with,
Yeah.
is real ice cream.
Okay.
They are a very big and obvious competitor to mine.
Got it.
They've been in the market for 20, 30 years, maybe even longer. Obviously, we both grew up eating it. But for me, I wanted something that was a little bit more, I want to say local, handpicked ingredients, something that had principles that were relevant to today. You know, Haagen-Dazs is a big company today. I wanted to build a company and a brand that had a real person behind it, a real person that was going to make honest decisions, that was going to drive an honest product.
Got it. Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. And when you started out to develop this, do you remember your first version of BetterWith Ice Cream, or the first batch?
So I know a lot of CPG brand founders have this story where they started in their kitchen.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not my story. I grew up on Vancouver Island, which is just northwest of excuse me, of Seattle. And there was this amazing ice cream parlor up Island.
Okay.
And I was a big fan. Um, they literally made ice cream from scratch every day at that ice cream parlor. And from scratch, that means they cracked eggs, like whole eggs into that recipe,
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
They made this recipe from scratch. They created it, they owned it, and they made the most phenomenal ice cream. And so when I became interested in this whole idea of ice cream, I started doing my research, and that meant eating a lot of ice cream. So everywhere I went, I
It's fun
scoured the
research.
planet for ice cream, right? Everywhere. I went to Italy, I went to Montreal, I went to Toronto, I went to Seattle, I went everywhere.
Wow.
But I always compared it to this ice cream parlor on Vancouver Island. And they always, in my mind, with my kind of taste expectations, were better.
Okay.
And so I approached them. I was like, what are you guys doing? How are you doing this? They knew me. They knew me as such a loyal fan at that time. And now I was bringing my family in. So we already had a relationship. And I just asked them if they would be interested in doing this with me.
Oh,
And they
cool.
were older. They were much older. This was not even 10 years ago. So I guess they would have been like 65 at the time. They were a couple European as well. And they were like, God, Lori, it's the last thing we feel like doing is getting into a new business at this
Yeah.
time. They were just really content with making this world's best ice cream out of their ice cream shop. And but I was a marketer, right? That's the skill that I bring to this business. And so we settled with, they were going to teach me everything they knew.
Okay.
And the husband in the relationship, he's literally my godfather of ice cream.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah.
So that's our relationship. I'm literally going up there tomorrow. And he was the guy that answered every phone call that I had. And so I took their recipe and I took it into, I wanted to scale it essentially. So how do we take it into this like craft of making these small batches and turning it to a CPG grocery brand so that the
Right.
world can enjoy this product? And that's where they really helped me take that, take the formula.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. Very cool.
that's the beginning of that story. And I'm really proud of it because if anything, the base is exactly the same as
Okay.
far as the percentage breakdown in the ingredients. But in my own way, I wanted to make it, and this is where I added my own kind of intention with the brand, is I made the ingredients, I think, a little better. So because it's important today for the consumer, I sourced my ingredients for my flavors. So I know that my coffee, for example, is a organic Brazilian Arabica bean, fair trade. I really I invested more time in sourcing ingredients for the flavors,
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but promising them, and that was the only, this is actually really important, and probably really important for people that are listening to your podcast that want to start their own business.
Great.
The
Yeah.
only promise I had to make to them, and this is what was so important to them, is that I would never compromise on the formula,
Oh, wow. So quality.
the quality. They were like, because the recipe is so clean, and when I say clean, there's no gums, there's no preservatives. The only stabilizer, essentially, which is the egg yolk, which is an emulsifier, that's it. So really, it's quite unstable. We
Yeah.
can't we can't play with it that much, and if you do, ultimately it will result in a product that will separate.
Mm,
You'll get crystallization, the freezing temperature. There's just all these characteristics that will change the mouthfeel
sure.
ultimately. And because they had over 20 years experience in working with this formula, they really understood the characteristics of it. And so they not only saved me a lot of time and money, but I had to make that promise. I was like, I promise I will not compromise, and I'll appreciate the integrity of this formula, and won't fuck with it, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Right. 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 Are they still involved today in any capacity?
Well, they're still making their ice cream
Yeah.
from
Sure.
scratch. I mean, I can tell you right now, I phoned them this morning to tell them I was coming up, because they inspire me and give me insight for flavors that they create that are trending.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
Well, the advantage with the relationship is that they have an ice cream shop. I don't. So in that
Sure.
ice cream
They're
shop,
direct to consumer right there.
they're direct to consumer. They get immediate feedback, and so when they're creating new flavors, they get the reaction immediately. So I'm still able to utilize them as a resource to find out what's hot and what's not. And the product and the market that I'm making this ice cream for, whether you're on Vancouver Island or where you are or anywhere in North America, the consumer today is very similar in expectations when you're looking at a premium ice cream product. You know, taste is king, but they want something that is, you know, obviously aside from it being natural, but they want to be able to have an emotional response when they put that spoon in their mouth, that it's almost orgasmic,
Right.
right?
Okay.
That's
Got it.
that's where I want this ice cream to go. And so I've spent, before COVID, I spent primarily, my marketing was doing demos, you know, in grocery stores, and that was really really instrumental for me, because that was my testing, right?
Okay.
So every
Got it.
time I gave that consumer a sample of my ice cream, I was watching their reaction. There needed to be a moment of silence. I wanted to see, like, and if they didn't react that way, you know, that's where I was asking the questions, like,
Okay.
how am I letting you down right now with this experience? What would you want? And so these people up island, they have that every day that their door is open, right? So I study that. I look for that. That's important.
Got it. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. It sounds like you have a true connection with your consumers, especially in the region where you're at and where you've started. Has COVID impacted any of that? That was like the first thing that came to mind as you're talking about in-store sampling and people coming to a physical location. Has that had to evolve a little bit this year?
Oh, it's changed everything.
Yeah.
You know, there's been no demos. There's complete intolerance for that, which initially I was relieved because I was really tired.
I needed a break.
I was like, oh, you know, thinking this was going to be a couple weeks or a couple months and it would be a nice little break for me. So, you know, obviously it hasn't been that, but being a small company still, it allowed me to focus on other strategies, right?
Sure.
So now what I'm working on is, how do I create this sensation and this experience with digital content?
Got it. Yeah. Right. Where everyone's focus is now.
Hmm.
Got it. That makes sense. And then another question to unpack what you just kind of walked through. Given the ingredient makeup of what you've developed and what, you know, this husband and wife group at this ice cream shop created, what does that look like? I mean, I know you're just in Western Canada right now, so you're in a small like geographical region. What does that do for like shelf life and like the turnover of your product? Does it have to be eaten pretty quick, or like because it's frozen, does it last longer? I was curious about how that all works in this part of the industry.
So when the ice cream is made on the production line, everything is made fresh, and our ingredients are actually made per order for that production run.
Oh, got it.
So because the ingredients are, they have a 2-week shelf life, but because we time everything so that it gets incorporated into this product and then it's frozen right away, obviously, because it's ice cream, the shelf life is just as long as anybody else. That is
Okay.
the advantage of making ice cream,
Sure.
it is, you know, over a year. So we absolutely don't have issues there. The intention of building out this ice cream company was driven from my previous business. Before this, I was the co-founder and co-owner of a cupcakes bakery
I
chain.
saw that for a long time.
Yeah, and that was, you know, actually, ironically, because you are in the States, that was inspired by 9/11, and that was my
Okay.
girlfriend and I being in our 20s, ultimately being impatient with working for other people, and we decided to open up this cupcake shop. It was one shop. It was in 2002. Didn't know what we were doing,
Yeah.
and as a result of that, that actually morphed into a TV show, which was quite ironic.
That's really cool. Yeah,
So
I read that on. I was reading that on your LinkedIn. That's wild. So, how could you just before you move on? I'm so curious how that all worked. That's because that has to have some sort of relevance to, I'm sure, how you work and do things today. So you started like a cupcake business and
100%.
got on a TV show.
Um, Heather and I were we're salespeople,
Okay.
and we grew up together, and we were always working together kind of side by side in these sales jobs, everything from literally selling sweatshirts to selling fax machines, to then selling this odor neutralizer at ground zero. Like we were
Oh,
right
wow.
there. It was a phenomenal product. But still, in all of those jobs, we were working for other people. And so we were in our mid 20s, and we understood each other. We understood our drive and our passion. And we were just we were getting super impatient with working for other people. Neither one of us had ever baked a cupcake or had ever worked in the business. That was actually the premise of the show. This will not be in order, but it was one, never start a business you know nothing about. B, or two, never start a business with your best friend. And three, never start a business without a business plan.
That is funny.
So we essentially broke these rules, and that is what created the opportunity of doing the show.
Got it.
And so the show aired 2010. There was obviously a lot of personal backstory in there, and it was beautiful because at the time, personally, I was just about to do in vitro. So my entire 12 months leading up to my first son being born is now on, available on Amazon or on DVD. And
Oh,
my son's
wow.
now 10, so
That is
he's he
funny.
he loves it, although
Yeah.
he's pissed that he's not on the show. Um, that's a whole other interview.
Yeah,
But
no, that's really cool though.
so what the show did is it really obviously highlighted running a business with your best friend, but it was an incredible opportunity and experience. But when the show was over and I had to get back into work with building out this brand and building out this business, what was really frustrating me as an entrepreneur is how limiting a cupcake was. They're
Okay.
very temperamental. We bake them fresh. They don't ship well. You definitely need to eat cupcakes within 2 to 3 days.
Right.
So the idea of ice cream landing on my lap was really exciting because here was a product that's got legs on it, right? You can
Yeah.
ship it. You
Right.
can throw it across the country. And that really enticed me because here I saw this as an opportunity to build a company that I could scale.
Got
And
it.
and that motivated me.
No, that's awesome. That was another question I was thinking of before we got on is it, I assume because it's frozen, it lasts a while, which it sounds like it does. Is it really expensive to ship though? I'm assuming like that part of running the business has to be somewhat expensive. I would assume that like frozen or refrigerated, uh, logistics is a lot more than like what I'm used to with RX bars.
Absolutely. And definitely more in Canada,
Okay. Yep.
right?
100%. Yep.
For example, Amazon doesn't even sell ice cream online in Canada.
Right. Yeah.
And as a result, I won't either until Amazon does, because the
Okay.
fulfillment and the logistics just aren't worthwhile, right? It's just
Yeah.
I mean, would you pay $200 to have ice cream shipped to you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, it's something funny because that's something. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in e-commerce at RX and before, and that was something that was interesting. Was once I really started getting into the weeds for us, seeing that that's a category that's not sold on there. Do you think that's something that they're ever going to try to get into? I mean, I know it's expensive, but it seems like I'm
I
surprised
think it
no one's
will,
really done it.
I think it depends on population,
Yeah,
right? And we just don't have the density here. I can
sure.
do that within major cities. And so eventually within urban centers, I'll be able to achieve that. But
Right.
that's not where my focus is right now. My
Okay.
focus is distribution growth within grocery channels
Okay.
and brand awareness. So until I achieve that, then I'll be able to consider that. And it's different in the US. There's a lot of platforms in the US that ship frozen goods.
Yeah.
And because there's the population. So I'll be able to leverage that once I get down there.
Got it. Yeah, no, I love it. So then what's your distribution strategy? You kind of hit on it, but you're going after the grocery channel right now, getting brand equity out there. Is that kind of the path right now? And then what's the next few stages look like for people who end up, I mean, I'm sure if anyone is listening to this and you're in the Vancouver area, you got to find it and check it out. And then yeah, what's your plan for next steps for distribution?
Definitely national.
Okay.
And the focus would be for 2021. And so BetterWith is currently available in Western Canada. So the goal for 2021 is absolutely to expand nationally across the country, really stabilize that, bring the awareness up, and create an experience. Create a culture around this brand that differentiates us from everyone else. As I said earlier, really have a voice that resonates with something that is driven by personality and values, right?
Right.
And take that timing, and when we're ready with that, to expand into the US, because admittedly, um, there's a lot more competition in the US. Aside from Haagen-Dazs, there's a lot of ice cream shops that are in grocery that are killing it, that have a lot of brand loyalty. They deserve it. They're really good products. Where that's not going to be my model. My
Okay.
model is still going to be to stay in grocery. So my offering is quite different, right? When BetterWith is going to be positioned in the grocery, whether it's in Canada or in the US, that price point is going to be competitive with Haagen-Dazs.
Okay.
Because
Is
I'm
that kind
not.
of your like key? Is that who you're focusing on mostly from a price point perspective?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope to share the shelf space with Haagen-Dazs, right?
Yeah.
I think there's room for both of us, and we both stand for, we both offer a very similar product. The biggest difference, because of who I am and because of the nature of the product, which is an advantage, is BetterWith though it averages per SKU between 24 24 to 37% less sugar than Haagen-Dazs
Oh,
does.
wow, that's a lot.
So that's substantial, and that would be the primary difference. But as far as the mouthfeel and the ingredient deck, it'd be almost identical.
Got it. Okay. And then, can you give people just, I think people who maybe aren't in food would love to know this too. And I think being in food, I think it's an interesting question is why are you focusing on grocery, and just like your methodology behind like why you want to focus on that so much first?
Well, I'm in it. So I'm
Okay. Yeah, sure.
definitely, once I made that commitment, you should have asked me that question before I got in this. So having a retail bakery, I really underestimated the difference in the business model from grocery to something like having your own shop. And I think the advantage that I can bring to this business and this product is understanding how important it is to have that customer experience
Hmm.
and that connection with the customer. That's where we thrived with cupcakes, and they saw that in us, and that's why they did the show. And being right in front, whether you're selling, which is the strengths that we brought to both companies. At Cupcakes, we were selling directly in front of them, to them, developing these relationships. And so what I bring to this company now in a CPG space where there isn't that natural connection, that's what I'm harping on, is making this an experience. What ice cream has shown us during this time of COVID is it is a important product during COVID. It's a product that people rely on. It provides comfort, and it aids in stress. It's an emotional driver, right?
Yeah. Right.
And the category's been surging since COVID. The conversation of COVID came out, and that's an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And so for me, in this creation with digital content, what I'm thinking of is how can we connect through digital and through these social platforms and feel like we're in the room with the customer while they're enjoying this product,
Got it.
and
Yeah.
be a part of that, and not only be a part of it, but support them through what they're going through, because we're all eating ice cream for different reasons,
Sure.
right?
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. So then during COVID, have you guys actually seen growth? Because it's kind of funny, just, in my line of work at RX, it's like, people aren't going to the gyms and commuting and eating a snack as much. Like, so this year has been tough on us because the use occasion is actually the opposite, where it's just not there the same way it was
Mhm.
before COVID. But for you guys, it actually could be the other way. So have you seen an uptick in sales and an uptick in growth this year because of COVID?
For us, it's been the opposite.
Yeah. Wow, that's
So it's
awesome.
been the best year. It's the best year that I've had in the business. What's happened is in this market, and I can only speak for the market that I'm in, where Haagen-Dazs has been sold out. it's been the first time that customers have organically discovered BetterWith.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they've been reaching out to me going, "Oh my God, I finally tried BetterWith and for the first time, and this is way better than Haagen-Dazs. Wow, did you know?
Right.
Why isn't this here? Why isn't this everywhere?" So I've actually had a lot of engagement. This is where this idea of connecting digitally with the consumers came from. It's because of the customer reaching out to me,
That's cool. Yeah.
wanting more of it and
Right.
telling me about the product, like as if I didn't know. So it was really fun. And they're like, I'm going to take this empty pint to my, my closer grocery store and get it in there. And so it's been,
Oh, that's good. A little organic sales going on.
yeah, it's been interesting, unexpected, surprising, and really exciting when a customer is willing to do that for you.
Yeah.
And that's been shown a lot of um, just dynamic energy between. It happens on a weekly basis right now, so it's
Right.
cool.
Sure. No, that's awesome. For people who are listening who don't know, I mean, like, I think it's interesting too. RX we launched in 2018 in Canada. And I didn't know until we started doing business up there, just like how spread out you guys are. I mean, I knew this, but like you guys really, your population is really made up of like West Coast, Toronto, East Coast. And it's like, there's not a whole lot elsewhere. It's like very, very pocketed. Is that where you would also want to go next? Are you thinking like grocery in like the Toronto area? And then I know for us, even, another thing with Canada is dealing with the French packaging if you want to go all the way to the East Coast too. So what does that all look like for you?
Before I launched, I knew the goal was to be national. So the packaging was created
Nice.
appropriately right from the beginning. I
Right.
can show you. Look,
Yeah, you have it.
I
Yeah,
can
I love the
tease you right
packaging.
here.
I think it's
So
really unique. Love it. One of the questions I actually had, did you come up with that yourself or did you end up having like an agency or someone help you develop the branding? I think it looks so cool.
I'm um I'm really good at selling and I'm absolutely an expert on eating ice cream, but I
Okay.
have no talent when it comes to creativity. I did though bring two things to the brand package as you see it, as inspiration. I loved the gold, and that was taken from a beautiful bottle of Portuguese olive oil,
Oh, interesting.
because the gold to me indicated premium,
Yes.
the best.
Right.
And the teal or sea foam, as we refer to it, the mint color, was came from this beautiful Italian pasta line. It's actually the
Oh,
same Pantone as
oh,
this
that's
pasta
cool.
line. So I brought the design agency a box for inspiration of what I really liked as far as what I felt represented how I wanted it to look. But as far as the look and everything, they did that.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
I also wanted it to reflect a clean and simple look for sure. So I
Yeah.
understood that instead of clutter.
Right.
Um, but what I was doing while they were doing that is I was in a puffy jacket in the frozen aisle of all the grocery stores in my market, and with a clipboard, just watching and asking strangers their opinion on ice cream.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I spent a lot of time with this kind of organic collecting data, just curious questions,
Yeah.
um, putting the kids to bed and then going to Whole Foods down the street and
Oh, wow.
literally
Really?
spying on customer behavior. I
You
think
can
we've
learn a
all done
lot at
that.
Whole Foods. I hadn't been to a Whole Foods in a while, and I just went to one a couple weeks ago. And I was telling my wife, I was like, I went in to get one thing, and I ended up walking around the whole store because now I'm just so obsessed with brands, and so I was just going like aisle by aisle, and it's just wild to see all of the different innovative brands that you can find in Whole Foods these days. It's cool.
And I'm going to add to that, which is why Whole Foods is a leader. It's their merchandising.
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Their merchandising. And from my background, which I also in fashion and in retail, I really appreciate that because they do such a good job that you walk in there intending to spend $50 and you end up spending $100.
100%. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And,
It's
and that's entirely a reflection of their merchandising.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. It is. It's really good. It's fantastic. And that one question, not to like pivot, but kind of one that I think is interesting given kind of the background of where you are and where you're scaling that I love to talk with founders on here is just, I know you got the concept from the area you live, and this whole story is really cool to me. How did you go about, and I know you had your own business and you run a show, so maybe you had some success there. How did you think about starting an ice cream company? bootstrapping it versus thinking about raising money, and if you had considered both of those, and kind of, I would love to just know a little more about your thought process and what you decided to kind of do when you started the business. We've had a lot of people on here who have done totally different things, and the one thing I've learned the most is that there's not one right way to do it. So just curious on just your thoughts there.
Well, this is where the truth comes out. Um, because I knew I wanted to scale from the beginning, and I actually, knowing I was going to scale, knowing that I was going to rely on co-packing relationships,
Sure.
I didn't think in the beginning I needed to raise a lot of money or have a lot of money into this,
Okay.
which of course I was horribly naive about because I didn't understand what a promo rebate was.
Oh yes.
and, and as you mentioned earlier, the margins in freight and storage. So in the very beginning, I definitely was able to finance this from, a little bit of money that I made from the show and the business and stuff like that. But I quickly discovered right after we launched that I was going to have to raise some more money. And everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean, I had people in Canada, the equivalent of Shark's Tank is Dragon's
Okay.
Den. I
Yeah.
had dragons calling, like I developed obviously this kind of local persona and celebrity, right? From the
Okay.
show. Like the show
Yeah.
was
Right.
sold in 95 countries around the world and we won a Gemini Award. And so there was a celebrity appeal. So I was able to get really great press. And I had all these people telling me not to do it.
Okay.
Everybody, don't do it, don't bother. I actually, everybody that I pitched, they wouldn't touch Frozen.
Oh, okay.
Um, the probably the most um, optimistic response that I got was, um, "Call me back once you've done $1 million in sales."
Prove it out a little bit.
Yeah. So I actually, at the age of 45, I I I really still do, but at the time, because it was very dark time.
Mm-hmm.
I believed in my product so much that I moved home with my parents at the age
Oh
of
wow.
45.
Yeah. Got it.
Um, the ultimate entrepreneurial sacrifice, right?
Sure.
And I'm an only child, and we have this beautiful organic farm, that I
Yeah.
talked about
Right.
earlier. And my dad just looked at me, and they know my work ethic, right? And they were like, "Look, this is your future, so bet the farm.
Oh,
If
love
you
it.
want to do this, bet the farm."
Yeah.
And so COVID changed everything for me because it allowed me to really stabilize and focus on how to build out the business and not and grow organically without spending any money that I didn't need to. And I think by this time next year, I'll be able to call those people that told me to call them back.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Very cool.
So yeah, it
So
was
it's
it
kind
was
of
really
a,
hard.
yeah, I was gonna say, so it sounds like it's kind of been a two-part process that you're kind of in the middle of.
Yeah, and um, that's my story.
Yeah.
And that's my journey. And I think I'm really proud of the decisions that I've made. Has it been difficult? Absolutely. But, it's just the way it is in the startup world. And that's why I rely on listening to other startup stories because a lot of them are similar.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of, you got to stay focused. You got to stay committed to the values of what you intend to do. And don't let naysayers stop you.
Right. Yeah.
I know how good my ice cream is,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, your
So just
product
keep on
speaks for
going.
itself. You mentioned a few things in there that I think, I mean, I hear in nausea when it comes to successful entrepreneurs. It's complete and utter belief in the product. Like, just you're so gung ho about it, you completely believe in it, and that I think probably goes a long way. And then two, it just sounds like your resilience. It sounds like you're like going to figure out any way to make it work. Where a lot of people probably along the route, could have had any of those hiccups and decided, okay, man, I should just get out of the business, right? So seems like in every single one of those, you've taken the step forward instead of pausing.
I have a SKU that I created for myself because I don't like vanilla.
Okay.
Vanilla is the number one SKU in any ice cream category or any ice cream
Is
brand.
it really? Vanilla
Yeah,
is?
it's
Oh wow.
it and it's so vanilla.
Yeah, I mean
Like
that's I'm a chocolate person. I would always pick chocolate over vanilla, so that's a
van-
bummer to hear.
vanilla is always the number one. And I think ice cream is so good. I created cream. So I
Okay.
have a flavor that
I
isn't a
saw that.
flavor.
Yeah.
And that's how good my ice cream is that I didn't have to mask it with a flavor.
Love it. Oh, that's really cool. I didn't realize that was like kind of the concept or reasoning behind that.
That's my personal, you know, I when I was making it and when we were creating it and creating the flavors, which of course I, got some Nielsen data and I was like, what are the Haagen-Dazs top 10 flavors?
Sure.
It was
Yeah.
like, I mean, the data's out there, right?
Right, right, right.
And so I did that, but then it was like, and I actually personally don't like anything about vanilla. I don't like the smell. I don't like the taste. And so I felt that through everything I was going through, I deserved my own flavor. And coming from this European upbringing where everything is very simple and, less is more, the cream is this incredible flavor that adds and pairs with everything without taking away from what you're pairing it with. So, affogato, like espresso, or pairing that on top of pie where you don't have the vanilla competing with the chocolate. So it's
Right.
like think frozen whipping cream.
Yeah,
Like who
okay.
doesn't want that?
Yeah, that sounds delicious. Very
Exactly.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. And it sounds like, I mean, you also have like the concept is ice cream. You're focused on ice cream. Do you foresee the brand being more than ice cream someday?
Maybe.
Maybe.
But
Yeah.
right now, my obsession is to really stay focused and create amazing flavors and build out this brand.
Yeah.
The word better with really lends itself nicely to do really fun stuff and, better with this and better with that. And so we can play with that. And I'd be super open minded to that. But I don't think that'll be this chapter.
Got it.
That
Yeah.
could be someone else's chapter.
Got it. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I was just curious. Totally makes sense. Kind of to build on that, I mean, knowing that 2021, you're hoping for national distribution at some point, you'd love to get into the United States. What, in your perspective, what does the 1, 3, 5 year outlook kind of look like for Better With?
Oh, by 3 to 5, definitely be going into the US. And
Okay.
then that will be the most not only scary journey,
Yeah.
admittedly, for sure, but the most thrilling ride that I can't wait for. I can't wait for it and I can't wait for it. I
Sure.
really want to make sure we do this properly. I can't do it alone.
Right.
This is the first, during COVID, I was actually able to hire my first employee,
Oh, I was going to ask.
right?
I was going to ask if you have a team yet, or is it just you?
Yeah, up until April, it was just me.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So me and my friends up island in their ice cream shop, which aren't part of my company, but they've been mentoring me. Right.
Yeah.
So I now have a production manager who's also R&D, and he's brilliant. And it's amazing to actually have someone that I can finally, you know,
Work with, bounce ideas off of. Yeah.
trust,
Trust. Yeah.
um,
Right. Right.
share, like someone that actually knows and feels what I'm going through. So, the priority before going into the US will be making sure that we have the team in place, we have the manpower, we have the money, and we nail it. We do it right. It's
Right.
important about doing it right. So I'd rather take the time and, you know, just do it properly.
And you sound like you're at a really exciting point too, because I mean, once you get national distribution in Canada, and if you want to go to the US, I mean, that's gonna be a whole different, Better With organization than I'm sure it is now, right? You're gonna need a lot more people and resources, and that's a whole nother undertaking. So it's exciting.
Oh, it totally is. And, I think um, with all the time that I spent developing cupcakes, which was we started in 2002. So what was that? It was like 15 years that I was involved in that. I learned a lot about management and about just how to be a leader,
Right. Oh yeah, I'm
right?
sure.
And the accountability of that. And so I'm excited to be able to do that again.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's super exciting. That's awesome. Some of the questions I always like to ask founders towards the end. So it sounds like, I mean, especially for you, you have one other person now, but you've been building a business and doing everything. It sounds like, from sales to marketing to supply chain to finance, everything. What tools do you use to, keep track of goals for the company, weekly stuff down to like daily tasks? Do you have anything that's really worked for you over the years of starting these different businesses?
Um, I literally find a pad of paper and a pen. I can't be anywhere without that. That's always within arm's reach.
Okay.
I'm constantly writing everything down and referring to that. I'm very simple that way. And I have about a year ago, I discovered a book and an author who probably has had a tremendous impact on me. So, Ramping Your Brand is a book that's now become my toolkit.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'd highly recommend that
I'm gonna write this
to
down.
any aspiring or start any CPG brand that's in the startup phase. It's available on Amazon, and Dr. James Richardson is the author. But the timing, it was very serendipitous. It was pre-COVID, and the book, he's an expert. He's clearly knows what he's talking about. And RX Bar is actually mentioned in the book,
Oh, cool.
being a
Okay.
unicorn brand. And, it's like, how do you ramp up your brand? So perfect book for me to read at the time.
Sure.
But to answer your question, yeah, those are the tools that I rely on: books, podcasts, to keep me in check that
Yeah.
the pain that I'm feeling and going through is normal, and just making sure that I document everything. And
Okay.
I have also no problem picking up the phone
Got it.
and calling who I think is an expert in the field, and picking their brain. I really rely on that.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that's a great one. And then when you say documenting, what do you mean by that?
Just journaling everything,
Okay. Yeah.
like I have so many pads of paper where that's where everything is, right? Everything from what do I need to do today? What have I done this week? What's going on? And it's just something that I couldn't live without.
Love it. No, that's fantastic. That's great. My next question was going to be your favorite book that you'd recommend to the listeners, but would it be Ramping Your Brand, or is there another one you'd like to also recommend?
Well, definitely Ramping Your Brand is the one that I've been referring to. What is another one that I read this year? Oh, I do have one. I'm gonna go get it.
All
Hold on a
right,
minute.
let's do it.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just having a moment where I
You got
can't
the
remember.
AirPods.
Oh, Never Split the Difference.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, so I didn't it was funny. I didn't get a chance to because I'm not in our sales organization necessarily. I support them but I'm not in them. Yes. Our sales team he came out and like met our RX sales team, and like everyone read that book. And that's like pivotal. I haven't finished it. I've read parts of it before meetings, but I've actually like read that before going into like big customer meetings. It's a great resource.
So again, read it twice.
Okay. Never split the
Like,
difference.
if you want to understand, this is probably the thing that's been the hardest for me.
Okay.
Not only coming into grocery as a small business, an entrepreneur for the first time, but being taken seriously.
Got it.
You know,
Yeah.
Starting co-packing relationships and holding them accountable and having them take you seriously. That you know you're worthy of them making your product, and being in the position of negotiating. That's been
Yeah.
the toughest thing to have credibility when you're such a small company, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and
Everyone
probably if you had some of that you probably had never done before, right?
had done none of it
Yeah.
before.
That's so
And,
wild. It's so cool.
um, despite kind of my past experience, it's very humbling.
Sure.
And I think one of the best qualities that I bring is my patience, So in the beginning, when co-packers were like, and this literally happened, it was like, yeah, we'll make your product, but it needs to be COD. You know, we're gonna charge a ridiculous amount of money. And by the way, there's not gonna be a contract. And we're gonna have to double volume. Like, in what world do you live in where your volume production minimums are doubled, but they charge you more money, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And because I'm in the ice cream business and I'm in Western Canada, and they knew that no one else could make my product, I would just say, sure, great,
Oh,
no
okay.
problem. Little did they know that I was working from home and I didn't have the, fixed expenses of an office, right?
Yeah.
So for me that really helped with my bottom line and
Oh,
allowed
got
me
it.
to compromise, right?
Yeah.
The goal was just to keep ice cream on the shelf, right? It wasn't about building at that time. It wasn't about building a profitable product. It was
Okay.
about getting the product out.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting. So you're able to, maybe you had an uphill battle because of your scale and your size, but you were able to kind of counteract that just with the ability to, not have the overhead costs that a normal company would have.
Exactly.
Interesting. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Very interesting. You've talked about a lot of this in here, but just one other question is just like if a one liner or one thing as a soundbite for somebody, what advice do you have for anyone who wants to start their own company? What, especially in the CPG space?
Well, advice is if they are a bootstrapping entrepreneur, they're playing the long game. They need to understand that this is not something that's going to happen overnight.
Got it.
And this is a 10-year journey for me,
Right.
minimum.
Okay.
So I have that patience. I feel like I'm young and I have the energy and the focus to do it. But for a lot of people that are coming out of tech, where things can happen very rapidly,
Sure.
this is not that industry.
Yeah.
So the best advice that I can give is understand the game that you're getting into, and the CPG game is a long game.
Right. Got it. No, that makes sense. That's great advice. And then lastly, how can people find you, find Better With, especially if they're outside of the Vancouver area? Do you have any suggestions on, following you on social media or your media play?
Absolutely. I mean, the easiest is betterwith.com, the website.
You have a great
That is the
website, by the
website.
way.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. When is this
Love.
going to air?
I will probably have this up. This is on Friday, probably like Monday or Tuesday.
Oh, wow, that
Because
close.
I
Okay,
have,
because
yeah, I have
it's
one
the
other
website's
episode that
changing.
I need to put. Oh, it is.
Yeah. So thank you for loving the
No,
website.
I
But
do. It's great. I was really impressed. I was like, can I buy ice cream on here? That was the one thing I was trying to figure out. Is like, I answered it on this podcast.
sorry, I'm just a big tease.
No, it's okay. It's all good. It looks great. Very good. Well, so betterwith.com. Are you on social media or anything as far as like
Better with
Instagram?
Foods.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Better with Foods, and people can always just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Lori Joyce. I absolutely would love to have numerous conversations and Zoom chats and be part of someone else's startup journey.
Awesome. That sounds great. Yeah, and I'll link all that in the show notes so everyone can find you. Well, Lori,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on. This has been a blast. I appreciate it. And like you said, when you finally get into the US, we should do a round two and we can share it out with everybody.
Thank you, Shane, and good luck with the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
All right. You too. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
All right.